The Dolphins have added a new member to their front office with the hiring of former Titans general manager Jon Robinson.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. I want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Special thank you to each and every one of you who have helped to make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Today on the show, Jon Robinson, new hire for the Dolphins front office. Robinson is the former general manager of the Tennessee Titans, a post in which he held from 2016 to December of 2022. The Titans had a successful run under Robinson before things spectacularly fell apart as a part of a rift with Mike Vrabel. And we'll talk about what went wrong, and we'll talk about his draft history. And the draft history is notable in a couple of different places, too, in which he's held positions of power as the director of college scouting with the New England Patriots. And then the early years of the Tennessee Titans. I think you can look at those drafts and say this has the potential and a right environment to be a productive hire for the Dolphins as a part of their staff, but it's obviously not guaranteed. And the way things ended as the general manager in Tennessee led for Robinson being out of the league for a few years before getting this opportunity. But he has been interviewing for general manager vacancies the last couple of years. So let's start with this. First of all, who is Jon Robinson? He got his start in football coaching, a couple small school stops. He played he went to college at Southeast Missouri State. He was a grad assistant there, and then a grad assistant at Nicholls State. And that was 1999, 2000, 2001. He's the linebackers coach at Nicholls State before he gets an area scout job with the New England Patriots in 2002. And he has that low-level job for 2002 through 2005. And then he's a regional scout for 06 and 07. And then in 2008, Jon Robinson gets the upgrade to assistant director of college scouting, and then he holds that position for 4 years from 2009 to 2012, the actual director of college scouting. So all the way up through New England to start, and then he leaves for Tampa Bay to be the director of player personnel. He overlapped for the last 2 seasons of that with an incoming general manager who's still there in Tampa Bay, and Jason Light. Jason Light was also a kind of off the Patriots branch, and Robinson was Light's director of player personnel for 2 seasons before he gets the general manager post with the Tennessee Titans. So kind of the traditional scout's role on his way up through. So now you think about what the Dolphins have in the front office. And, it's 7 years of general manager experience in Jon Robinson, 2 separate stints as an interim general manager experience for Champ Kelly, who still has a personnel executive role in the front office. They've already hired Kyle Smith to be the assistant general manager under Jon-Eric Sullivan. And then obviously Jon-Eric Sullivan and his tenure with Green Bay that ran for pretty much the entire time that Jon Robinson was on the come up, and then goes to Tampa. And then as an actual general manager, Sullivan was working his way through the ranks and the hierarchy of Green Bay and all of their impressive scouting pipeline that exists as well. So that's the path that Jon Robinson has taken. The way things ended, I'll tease a little bit of that. Let me start with what he's done since he's been out of the league. He was fired on December 6th of 2022, 2 days after the Eagles got smoked, or the Titans got smoked by the Eagles, with A.J. Brown, who was traded that spring from Tennessee to Philadelphia, going off for 8 for 120 and 2 touchdowns. So it was a controversial move at the time to trade A.J. Brown. Their pivot did not work. And then they get to that season that trade happens, and they play the Eagles, and A.J. Brown blows up, and they lose by 3.5 touchdowns. I did 25 points and try to do the math in real time. 2 days after that, Robinson was dismissed. And Mike Vrabel held the job for one additional year. And then Mike Vrabel was out. And then Rand Carthon was out. And then Brian Callahan was out. And that's the part that, as you look at this organization in Tennessee and some of their struggles, if you will, you do acknowledge things were pretty misaligned at the end, in addition to some of the personnel shortcomings. Now, make no bones about it, and we'll talk more about what went wrong, but Jon Robinson's approach to the draft at the end of his tenure in Tennessee skewed very heavy towards drafting for need. And when you're drafting for need and you're targeting Caleb Farley, and then you're targeting Isaiah Wilson, and that season was kind of a tough one with the COVID restrictions, and there were some character flags that the Titans didn't sniff out with Isaiah Wilson. But at the end of the day, if you're reaching on need, and we've said this on this show how many times, because the Dolphins have put themselves in this bucket, and most of the worst draft picks of the Chris Grier tenure, whether it's the Liam Eichenberg subsequent trade and draft selection, or the Noah Igbenogany selection, you paint yourself into a corner of needing to pick a certain player and feeling obligated to pick a certain player. You're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. And the Titans did that with all their early draft picks at the end, as they were trying to stay ahead of, we're losing this player in free agency. We lose Jack Conklin in free agency. We have to find a tackle, right? We lose Adoree Jackson. We have to find a corner. And that was part of the fuel that led to some of those disappointing late drafts in Tennessee that ultimately, paired with the A.J. Brown trade, yielded poor fruit, and Robinson being out of the league for a couple of years. And obviously it was very visible, that split. But more on that and some of the draft history that Robinson had early that has me at least acknowledging the recency bias as Jon Robinson bad. But some of these early Tennessee draft classes at least have me compelled about having this name and voice in the Dolphins draft assessments as we move forward from here. So we're going to get into that next. Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner can be a big one. Between busy workdays, cold winter nights, packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that is where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease, and it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule, whether that's a 30-minute recipe, an oven-ready tray, or quick lunches. You could save time and money. Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive the free dessert. So walk with me. We're going to do the draft history, and we'll start with the draft history in Tennessee, right? Because it is always difficult to compartmentalize the value that a certain individual has in any decision when they are not the primary decision maker. And we know Jon Robinson was the primary decision maker in Tennessee because you've seen the clip of Mike Vrabel getting up and walking away from the table on draft night when they trade Treylon Burks, and he's shaking his head in disgust and the big exhale, right? So you know that was not a Mike Vrabel call. And Mike Vrabel earlier that month said he was not, while he was going to be the head coach, were they going to trade AJ. And they did trade AJ. The Titans were a 3-win football team when Jon Robinson took over in 2016. For the first 5 draft picks that he made, they had a surplus in draft capital. They picked 8th, 33rd, 43rd, 45th, and 64th in 2016, Robinson's first year. Jack Conklin at 8, played 114 games as an NFL starter, was a 6-year starter, and most of that starting time took place in Tennessee. Kevin Dodd at 33. Austin Johnson, defensive tackle, 145 career games as a nose tackle, 43rd overall. Derrick Henry, 45th overall, one of the greatest running backs of all time. And then Kevin Byard, 64th overall out of Middle Tennessee State, 3-time first-team All-Pro. Those first 5 picks, Conklin was a 2-time first-team All-Pro. Derrick Henry was a 1-time first-team All-Pro. Hard to believe it's only 1 time, but 5 Pro Bowls. And Kevin Byard was a 3-time first-team All-Pro. So 6 first-team All-Pros across those 5 draft picks and a total of 8 Pro Bowls. A lot of meaningful time on task. That's an impressive way to start a tenure. And then you followed up in 2017, and it's not quite as sexy, but there's 3 players with 5+ years as a primary starter in the NFL. That includes Corey Davis, who retired early, but was a productive player. Adoree Jackson, who's still around the league. He's played 111 career games, 6 years as a primary starter. And then Jonnu Smith in the 3rd round, 100th overall. There's other players that are sprinkled in across the way here. Jayon Brown in the 5th round. Corey Levin is an offensive lineman with 88 career games. But it's really Corey Davis, Adoree Jackson, Jonnu Smith to go with Conklin, Austin Johnson, Derrick Henry, Kevin Byard in the first 2 seasons. And they had 2 first-round picks. That they had Corey Davis at 5 and Adoree Jackson at 18. They're light on draft picks the following year. They take Rashaan Evans and Harold Landry as their 2 picks in the top 150. Evans was a 4-year starter for Tennessee. Harold Landry's a 5-year starter. He's got 59 career sacks. Has become a nice player, as a Pro Bowl on his resume. But then they come back in 2019 and they go Jeffrey Simmons, A.J. Brown, Nate Davis, and then Amani Hooker. Hooker this season upcoming will go over 100 career games. A.J. Brown is obviously A.J. Brown's. He was drafted in 2019. He has over 8,000 receiving yards for his career. And Jeffrey Simmons is perhaps the most complete defensive tackle in the game. So you go those first 4 draft classes. 2019, there was 7 Pro Bowls amongst that group. Harold Landry makes it 8. Jonnu Smith with the Dolphins, so not with Tennessee, makes it 9. And then another 8 Pro Bowls with Derrick Henry and Kevin Byard combined, and that doesn't include Jack Conklin. So this is a pretty strong foundation. Like, you can see how Tennessee gets to be a competitive team with Conklin, Derrick Henry, Kevin Byard, Adoree Jackson, Harold Landry, Jeffrey Simmons, A.J. Brown, Amani Hooker, Rashaan Evans, Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, Austin Johnson, and those are all in the draft. That's not a bad resume. There's misses in here. Taywan Taylor in the 3rd round has 53 career receptions and played in 35 games and flamed out. Right? Kevin Dodd was as big of a flop as you could dial up, and they picked him at 33. And really, it felt like the pass rush was a bit of a blind spot on the edge for Robinson. Things went off the rails in 2020 because the drafts that happened thereafter, we talked about drafting for need. Just look at the first-round picks, right? Okay, we have Jack Conklin in 2016. Now in 2020, we need a right tackle. We're going to draft Isaiah Wilson. He played 4 snaps. Like, complete character issues, flame out, got traded to the Dolphins for a bag of chips and didn't even show up. So that gives you an idea on Isaiah Wilson, but they picked him at 29 because there was a run on offensive tackles. That was the same year that Austin Jackson got drafted in the top 20. And they just went with, okay, well, we need a tackle. Let's draft this one. 2021 was Caleb Farley, right? The year after they draft Jack Conklin, Adoree Jackson comes in as a first-round pick, and now it's time when we need a corner. You draft Caleb Farley. Injuries was kind of the thing there. And then the year after that in 2022, it was, okay, we're going to trade A.J. Brown, so now we need a big receiver, so let's draft Treylon Burks. And it was an uninspired pick, and he's had injury issues and obviously is off the team in Tennessee already, despite being a 2022 first-round draft pick. He was most recently in Washington. Played in 8 games, started 3, 22 targets, 10 catches for 130 yards. He has more than half of his career receiving yards came in his rookie season when the Titans had to use him because he was the needs pick that they made, right? So that's how a team like Tennessee goes from 6 consecutive winning seasons and an AFC Championship game appearance and a number 1 seed in the conference, because all of those things happen under Jon Robinson, right? But all of those things happen under Jon Robinson, and then the wheels fall off the bus because for 3 straight years you draft for need and those players don't hit. And then you trade A.J. Brown and you have a very visible rift that is created with Mike Vrabel. So you're not organizationally not on the same page anymore. And then the player you traded embarrasses you, so you get fired. That's a first-class ticket. And it is pretty impressive, like how good the early draft stuff was in Tennessee. To be able to have that kind of run on your resume of Conklin, Henry, Byard, Adoree Jackson, Jeffrey Simmons, A.J. Brown, Harold Landry, Austin Johnson, Jonnu Smith, that's a good group. And then you look at the next 3 drafts combined. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 picks in the top 100 in the next 3 seasons. And the names were Isaiah Wilson, Christian Fulton, who's turned into a player, but took a while to get there and didn't really happen in Tennessee. Darrington Evans, who was pinballing around very early after they picked him. Caleb Farley, Dylan Radunes, Monty Rice, Elijah Molden, who might be the best player on this list, is the 100th overall pick in 2021. Treylon Burks, Roger McCreary, is a good football player, but injuries have kind of been a thing there for him too. Nicholas Petit-Frere. And then Malik Willis was the last top 100 pick that Jon Robinson made. Maybe Malik Willis is the best player of that group. But I'll tell you what, that's very similar returns to what the Dolphins got with their top 100 picks in a 2-year stretch. And we've seen the cascading impact that had on the Dolphins roster. So a few final thoughts here. Jon Robinson, new addition to the Dolphins front office. That's next. Make sure you guys stick with us. If you've ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win NBA Finals trip for 2. That's flights, tickets, the whole experience. So if you're looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run in the playoffs, this is the perfect time to lock it in. Futures this time of year, it's great. Whether you're picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title, it adds an extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now not only can you pick your cash, but you can also send yourself to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. The Malik Willis piece of this puzzle is obviously very interesting because the rift that existed with Tennessee, with Vrabel and Jon Robinson under ownership there, and Amy Adams Strunk, who's the owner of the team. The way in which the Titans have conducted their football operation since, I think underscores, like, once there is a divide or a chasm, it becomes very unhealthy very quickly with that franchise, because it was Robinson's gone and we keep Vrabel, and then Vrabel's gone and we keep Rand Carthon, and then Rand Carthon's gone and we keep Brian Callahan, and now Brian Callahan's gone and we keep Monty Ossenfort and we hire Robert Saleh. But there's also like a restructuring, like the year that they fire Callahan and hire Saleh, they also like restructured their front office this year. So like they have generally not been very committed to a direction. And it kind of all served as this splintering point where they had all this success in 6 straight winning seasons. That came from that A.J. Brown trade. It is impressive. You look back at Tennessee and their history. You know, Robinson takes a 3-win team to a 9-win team. They missed the playoffs. Then they go 9-7 in 2017 and make it to the divisional round. They win a playoff game. Then they go 9-7 again in 2018, which is Mike Vrabel's first season, and miss the playoffs. And then Tannehill comes in 2019. They get hot midway through the season. They go to the conference championship game. Then they go 11-5 and they lose in the wild card round in 2020. And then in 2021, they were the 1 seed and they lost to the Bengals in the home game. What was it, 16-13? Turnovers was kind of the story of that game, but they had a top end defense. They obviously had the running game with Derrick Henry. They had a good offensive line. They won 12 games. I mean, they won 32 games in 3 seasons, in 19 and plus playoff games with a divisional round appearance and a conference championship game appearance. And within 10 months of that conference or that divisional round home game number 1 seed appearance, Robinson was out. And they go 7-10, 6-11, 3-14, 3-14, and now they're obviously going to try to be it back on the come up. But the year in which they went 6-11 in 2013, when Robinson was gone and Vrabel was in his last year with the team, you kind of saw the divide where Malik Willis, Vrabel was not shy about expressing kind of the disdain, just like he was in 2022. And he did an interview at the end of 2022 and was asked about Derrick Henry. He's like, yeah, can't imagine we do anything else because we don't have anybody to throw the ball to. Like throwing Robinson and the pass catchers under the bus. And understandably so, right? This is not to make excuses for anything. That the missteps that we went through, that 3-year sample size of drafting and trading A.J. Brown and the player you picked to replace him being a total flop, it's a fireable offense, right? There is no bones about it. But I do think it is a compelling hire to know he's not the primary decision maker. He's not the number 2 in the organization. And that's before you get to some of the draft history that he's had with his ancillary and secondary roles in other stops. I mean, you can go through the Jon Robinson draft history and when he was the director of college scouting in New England. Here's some of the names that they drafted while Jon Robinson was the director of college scouting in New England. Donta Hightower and Chandler Jones in 2012. Nate Solder, Brandon Spikes, Rob Gronkowski, Devin McCourty, Sebastian Vollmer, Darius Butler, Patrick Trump. That's not a bad group, right? So I'm going to invoke the phrase. It's become one of my favorite phrases for contextualizing hires in this offseason, the Peter principle, right? People are promoted to their point of incompetency, at which points they stop being promoted. Jon Robinson doesn't become a general manager by accident. The Titans don't have 6 consecutive winning seasons and 3 legitimate years as a playoff contender by accident. Now, how they chose to sustain that, it's always the sustainability, right? You can ramp a team up, but once you get there and the resources become more finite, what kinds of decisions do you make? And for a team that's building right now, those are questions and stories that are going to be defined years down the road. But right now, this Dolphins team, they're just building. And we've seen the Packers sustain. That's the impressive part about the Packers. And that's why I think it's important that Jon-Eric Sullivan is the guy in the captain's chair, because the Packers have a sustained success as a franchise. You know how many losing seasons the Packers have since 1990? 1 in 2022, which was Rodgers' last season. They had a losing season in 2018 when they went 6-9-1. They had a losing season in 2017. Mike McCarthy's last 2 seasons, they went 7-9. They had a losing season in 2008 when they went 6-10. They had a losing season in 2005 when they went 4-12. And then they had a losing season in 1991. That's 6 losing seasons since 1990. You talk about sustained the Ron Wolf legacy onward, right? And that's when you hear Jon-Eric Sullivan talk about the process of building a sustained winner, and that's why I think there's power there. But I see the value in what a guy like Jon Robinson did to build a roster up in those early drafts. I'm unbothered, right? I'm intrigued. I'm unbothered by the idea of Jon Robinson being a senior personnel executive. The more that I've did the research on it last night and looked into it, I said, okay, I see the inspiration here. And thankfully, Jon Robinson's not making any decisions on player trades because he's a senior personnel executive. I get the combine today. I got to leave here in about 20 minutes to go to the convention center and pick up my credential. And then the Dolphins brass talks today. So we'll get some of that out today as well. So keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. I appreciate you guys as always for checking the show. Make it a great rest of your day. That's it for me. I'm out of here. Go Fins.